Hello, and welcome to the How We Do Digital Ministry podcast, sponsored by Faith Growth. I'm your host, Charlotte Elia, and on this podcast, we talk to leaders who are out in the world engaging folks through digital ministry. Today, I am delighted to have Rachel Kessler with me. Thank you so much for being here, Rachel.
Thanks for the invitation to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
You do so many different things. So I'd like to ask you to please introduce yourself the way you'd like to be known.
I am Reverend Rachel Kessler. I am an Episcopal priest. I am one of the chaplains at Kenyon College, which is a small liberal arts college in central Ohio. And I'm also the priest of the Episcopal congregation that worships on our campus. I've started also moonlighting as a visiting assistant professor of English in my copious free time. And then I have my side gig on TikTok. There we go.
It seems like a little more than a side gig, or
it expands. It's still a lot of time, let's say.
What is that like? You have over 45,000 followers currently.
Yes.
What is that like? Just thinking of how many people are watching you, what you do.
I mean, it can be a little overwhelming, right? And I certainly, my content has taken shifts as the platform has grown. I'm a bit more intentional about what I say and why. I mean, I think we can also be a platform like TikTok is weird. I mean, TikTok is just very strange as far as social media platforms go. So, you have this certain size number of followers, and then there is an unpredictability about how many people will see any given video, right? So you have 45,000 followers and you can post a video that maybe hits 3,000 people or 2,000 people. And then out of nowhere, you have a video that reaches 60, 70, 100,000 people. And there is something that is unsettling in not necessarily being able to predict what you post that is going to suddenly gain traction. And TikTok also has a way of pushing your content beyond your following, right? So if a video starts getting successful, then it gets pushed out to more and more people, and then it becomes even less predictable in terms of what the response is going to be to it. So it's complicated, I guess, is the answer to that question.
What first brought you to TikTok?
Okay, so this is a funny story, and this is a real story. So I'm a college chaplain, right? And one of my students, actually, who until they graduated recently had worked for Kenyon, running Kenyon College's TikTok, so was very active on the platform, and thought that I should be on TikTok, and this was actually, in the before times. It was February of 2020, so right before everything shut down. Took my phone and made my account, put it on my phone, and made my first TikTok for me, which was about our pancake. It was February of 2020, right? So it's about our pancake supper at the school for Shrove Tuesday. And I did not touch it again for a year. And then we were all in COVID times and pandemic. And I think I was feeling my own struggles with some degree of burnout and just not feeling fulfilled and being able to engage in ministry with people and in the ways that I, liked. And so I just kind of on a whim one day, I think it was in Lent, and just started making these Lenten sort of meditations and ponderings on TikTok. And it was something that I found incredibly creatively and spiritually fulfilling for myself to just be able to engage in that way, and then began to realize that this was something that was resonating with people. And especially as I started talking about my experience growing up as an evangelical and my own experiences with religious trauma and my struggles and my own journey, really realizing that there are a lot of people for whom that resonates incredibly deeply. And when I started posting about that is when I really started gaining more of a following.
Wow. how can we talk a little bit about how maybe you manage your time on social media? And
Sure.
would that be a short conversation, or is there a plan?
I probably not well. Like, I probably need to be more intentional about it. I try to, I find that I have to really almost put my phone in another room sometimes if I'm really going to be concentrating and focused on others. So there is the just make it harder to access aspect of time management. But I will be honest, I don't know that I have developed a particularly good discipline around how to structure my time on social media, which is one of the things that I've struggled with, right? On other social media platforms, when we talk about other aspects of digital ministry, I think I've always struggled with how to be very intentional about it, because I've never come into a good rhythm on like Instagram or Twitter or anywhere else in a way that you really have to be. But I've never come into a very good posting rhythm that I was able to maintain. And I think what's helped with TikTok is just there is a level of engagement and the questions you get. You're not having to come up with content yourself, right? The content emerges from what people are asking and what's arising. And so there's something that is fairly organic in terms of the content that I'm producing and the questions that I'm answering. But that also means that it can be a very powerful time suck.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, just putting the phone in another room, having to physically step away from it, is something I've found I have to do from time to time.
Sure.
I don't feel like that was a particularly helpful answer to your question, but that's honestly where I am. So
no, I think it's helpful to know who's struggling with this and the people are. I don't have, I'm doing just about as well in general, but
well, it's hard because you want to stay engaged, right? You want to stay engaged and you want to, right? As I said, I began teaching this past year, and that was that was also a huge addition to my time and my actual like real world job responsibilities. And it definitely impacted, right? Like I had to, the extra time that I have in my life got channeled into that from January to May in a way that really did impact how much I was regularly posting on TikTok and how much engagement I was able to offer. And it was kind of frustrating to me personally, but also that was a choice that I needed to make in order to do the work that I had committed to doing.
Sure. So you say most of your TikToks or a lot of your content is coming from questions that people are asking you through
quite often, or things that I hear a lot of, right? If I'm going to start a new conversation, it tends to emerge from things that I'm hearing on the app or things that seem to be conversation points. Discourse, as we sometimes say. But I do get a lot of it is through, questions that are coming up in comment sections or things that people have put in my Q&As.
What does your For You page look like?
What does I'm on such strange, I'm on strange corners of that app. A lot of Disney parks content.
Okay.
So a lot of Disney World content creators. That's probably my fun. That's my whimsical side. I mean, I am the NerdyPriest for a reason. So I am on a lot of Star Wars, a lot of MCU. I'm in book talk for sure. I'm on a lot of social justice spaces. I would say a lot of that is stuff that comes up on my FYP.
Cool. Let's a
lot of author. I have a lot of book talk authory people that I've become mutuals with that I really enjoy.
Are you finding that you're running into other religious or Christian based content?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, for sure. And a lot of that is people, we have, right when I got on TikTok, I found, I guess I'm divulging our secrets, but I don't think this is a deeply secret piece of information, but there's a Facebook group for progressive clergy content creators on TikTok.
Okay.
Which I guess speaks to like our age or something, that we're all making content on TikTok and then we're over talking about it on Facebook. We can unpack the whimsy of that. But it's been great, right? Like, I've actually made a lot of really great, just collegial relationships through that group, right? Because it's, there are some other Episcopal clergy on it. There are other clergy from a range of Christian traditions. There's a number of Jewish clergy. There's a few interfaith folks. So it's been a really fantastic group of people to engage with and just talk about some of exactly these questions. How do we manage our time on the app? How do we respond to questions? How do we navigate challenging situations? And then there's a whole range of people that I have come into contact with through through content that the algorithm throws at me, right? Like, one of my best friends from TikTok is a Catholic convert who used to be a Disciples of Christ pastor, and then converted to Catholicism. And we've become great friends both on and off the app. And it's been a fantastic, when I first got like regularly engaged with TikTok, I kept seeing people talk about like the friends that they had made on the app. And I was like, who makes friends? Who's going to make friends? And I really have like formed some great relationships through it.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think I do hear a lot of people discount the actual social part of TikTok. Yeah, the engagements. So let's talk some about the discourse and the engagement. I'd like to ask you particularly about kind of some of the negative aspects of social media in general.
Who gets negative feedback on social media? Who gets negative feedback? It's all puppies and rainbows and encouragement and nuance.
Yeah, we don't have time for that. Nuance on social media. Ooh.
Is your church website a mess? It could be difficult to navigate or doesn't represent you well. You want your site to be more than just an online brochure, but you don't know how to make that happen. Imagine having a beautiful, easy-to-use website for your church that helps people find the information they need about your church and its ministries quickly and easily. Faith Growth will build a beautiful, effective, user-friendly website for your church in as little as 4 weeks. Our process includes everything from a free initial consultation to the full setup and training so you can grow your digital presence and reach your community. Schedule a consultation at faithgrowth.com, or, if you're not ready yet, get your free guide explaining the process to get a website that reaches people and gets results by going to faithgrowth.com/guide.
Particularly as it concerns women, and then I think more particularly as it concerns women in ministry. Mm-hmm. Would you share something of your experience of that? Or
it can be very discouraging, right? I have actually a number of female colleagues who have Timothy blocked from their comments because the number of people that will just drop 2 Timothy and with no other context. Mm-hmm. Just, oh, good. You've thrown a random Bible verse into my comments. I am fully rethinking my entire vocation now. Well done. Great. We love it. But it can be it can, that sort of thing is fairly easy to filter out, and it's fairly easy to block people, and it's fairly easy to know what is not going to be productive engagement. I think what's a lot more challenging is when is it worth time to really invest in the energy in engaging with someone, trying to figure out whether they are a troll or not. I actually have one of my favorite experiences on TikTok to date is one of the things that I talk about a lot is my belief in sort of universal salvation, that everyone will be ultimately reconciled with God. And I had this guy, it's like sort of reformed Christian pastor, stitch my videos and in a very belittling way, in a very dismissive way, clearly took me talking about Christian universalism as assuming that I was a Unitarian Universalist, and like referencing things from like the official history of the Unitarian Universalist church and throwing them back at me. And I'm just like, I literally have to affirm the Christian creeds to be a pastor in my tradition. Like, and we really got into it. I mean, we went back and forth for like a day and a half, very intensely. And it was where the gender plays into this is there were a couple of other sort of male content creators doing sort of Christian deconstruction, like rethinking Christianity type, very similar content, all three of whom were mutuals of mine and people that I regularly engaged, same circles of the app. And this guy was being incredibly respectful to them, was like engaging with them very thoughtfully and very productively, and one of them finally, who is a fairly prominent like deconstruction progressive, it was Andrew Harrison Cox, Red Sage, people know him, made a video calling him out that was basically like, I've watched this entire thing play out. I have watched how you have engaged with me and these other creators. I have seen how you talk to NerdyPriest. By the way, here's all the credentials NerdyPriest has here's all the degrees she has. Here's the years she has in ministry. Here's all of the things that make her more of an expert than me or any of these other men that you're talking to, and basically do better. And this other creator like really heard that and really took it to heart and apologized and like re-engaged with me and my content. And we are now very friendly, mutual with each other. And he's like one of my favorite mutuals to engage with on the app. So like, I feel like that's a happy story of where, you just feel like there's some promise of something in this person's engagement that makes it feel like there is a worthiness to the expense of energy. And then other times there just isn't. I had one incident where a user was quite antagonistic towards me. And I made the mistake of using a swear word in my comments to him. And he proceeded to then make like several 3-minute long videos about how horrible I was to him, and filed a formal complaint with my bishop about me.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm very grateful that I have a supportive church, I have a supportive diocese, I have a supportive, I have the people who need to be behind me are behind me. But I mean, that's where like it can go. It goes from being a nuisance online to actually, this is something that starts to impact my real world. So it's very, very challenging. And I think what is important to remember is we all are people with limited time and resources. And I think an example of the guy who complained to my bishop, right? There was this sense of he's Southern Baptist for one thing. So coming from a very, very different perspective on Christianity. And there is this idea that if you are publicly a minister online, and then particularly a woman, that there is this expectation of how you should be above human in a way, right? Like you're not actually a complicated human being. You should be engaging in this, above human way all the time, and have an infinite amount of grace and compassion and energy to give to people online, no matter how they speak to you or treat you. And I think you have to give yourself permission to say, like, this is not where I can spend my time. This is not where I can spend my energy. This is not going to be conducive to any anything productive or beneficial to either one of us.
Right.
Right. And one of the things that I have, the longer I'm on the app, and one of the things I have found, right, is the same conversation cycle through. Right. People ask the same questions over and over again because they haven't seen the 14 other videos that I've made on the same topic. And so there are things where like, I am no longer getting into debates about whether I as a woman should be ordained and have the validity to be on this app. It's not a conversation that I will engage with. I'm done. I'm not going to have a conversation about LGBTQ plus affirmation, right? Like I can point people to other creators for whom that work is like a huge part of their platform. But that I'm not willing to give it the benefit of debate, right? Like I'm done playing defense in a way, right? I'm here to present a different voice of Christianity, not to, right? It comes down to who is my audience. My audience is people who have been hurt by the church, people who are looking for want to engage with a different expression of Christianity, people who just want to know about the Episcopal Church. My audience that I feel called to speak to is not changing the hearts and minds of like conservatives necessarily, right? Like, I mean, if they're there and we want to have good conversations, I love it, right? But that's not what I feel like my primary purpose and aim is on the app. And so that changes who I feel like I need to give my time and attention, and who is owed my energy. The other thing, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a lot, but
it's great.
Another thing I think I have found, right, and this plays into the gendered aspect of it, right? The longer I am on TikTok, the more I find myself willing to just tell people no, right? Like if someone's coming at me with something, or they make a snarky comment, or they, engage in a way that I find inappropriate, I will just tell them no. And it is interesting how that is received, particularly by men, when it is coming from me as a woman, right? Like I had an engagement just the other day where I was talking about purgatory, the idea of purgatory. And this guy was just like, I've been a lifelong Anglican and Episcopalian, and I've never heard anyone talk about purgatory. Just like C.S. Lewis.
Just drop that name. I don't know.
And he was like, oh, well, that guy's, I don't count him as an authority. I'm like, you don't have to like him. You don't have to like him, but he is arguably like probably the most famous Anglican that you can think of. And he talked a lot about the notion of purgatory. And I just went to this whole back and forth between us. And it was really me saying like, you didn't behave well here, right? Like you did not engage. You started by dismissing my content, and I corrected you, and you doubled down. And this is why, and by his profile picture, he looks to be like a 60-ish-year-old white guy, right? And it came back from him was like, I'm sorry, I've upset you so much. And I'm like, your assumption, because that the projection of, I've made the little lady upset. And I'm like, I'm not upset. I'm just setting a boundary. That is how I have found your engagement here, inappropriate, not inappropriate, but just not productive. And I was just, I didn't end up blocking him because that felt unnecessary, but the conversation went nowhere else after that. But, it is this assumption that if you are a woman, especially a woman pastor who everybody expects to be like super nice, right? And you hold a boundary that says, this is not how I will receive engagement on this platform, you are perceived to suddenly just be unreasonable. But I've seen, again, the longer I'm on the app, the less I care, but it is definitely a phenomenon.
So you may not be managing your time on social media as well as you want, but those are all tools that are managing your time and your energy.
Oh, of course.
About. Yeah.
I think is the energy that I'm putting into this good for me, right? I think, they're right. We can talk about the quantity of time, which is probably something that I need to be more thoughtful. We all do, right? Like we all do. But I do think I am very intentional about, am I engaging on this platform in ways that are nourishing to me and productive and good? And I do feel like I have some, I'm very free with my block button. I am very free. I probably have more people blocked than I follow at this point. And it's then when they follow you, when I've had people that I've blocked, and then they have found me on my private Instagram and have sent me message requests on my private, locked Instagram, being like, why did you block me on TikTok? And I'm just like, your inability to respect boundaries has not changed my mind on why I wanted to block you on TikTok. But it's pretty wild.
Yeah, you suddenly have so much more confidence in my decision.
Exactly. I was like, oh, that's good. No, I read that situation right. Okay, good for me.
Are these lessons that you're learning on TikTok spilling over into your work in the physical world?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe just in terms of like my ability to to hold those boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. And to have a little bit more confidence in just saying no, or saying like, this is in how I expect engagement. So I like to think that perhaps that is spilling over a bit. I've become a little bit more of a confident person. I mean, I think it's right. I think when I first got on, one of the biggest changes, I think, in my engagement when I first got on TikTok, I think I used to be very defensive in terms of defending a more progressive, or these are difficult terms, but like defending a more affirming, progressive, inclusive, whatever adjective you want to put on that, in defending that type of Christianity against a more conservative version of the faith that tends to see itself as the default, right? Because that's the world I grew up in, right? Yeah. Like we as, I grew up very my dad's a Southern Baptist pastor, grew up very conservative, evangelical. That's the default, right? And if you deviate from it, you have to explain yourself or explain why or make a case. And I would say one of the biggest shifts in my approach since joining TikTok and engaging with other leaders and other progressive Christians is realizing, okay, that's not actually the way I want to go about this, right? I'm absolutely done playing defense. Which again is not a productive, to be in that defensive place isn't actually good for any of us. But just here I stand, I can do no other, I guess, right? But having more of that coming from a place of confidence in what I am talking about and what I am addressing as regards my faith, and not putting it in always answering against, right? Always reacting against this version of the faith that I was brought up in, and coming to a much more settled space. Even as I'm spending a lot of time, right? I feel like I'm spending more time talking about my background and my upbringing than I have in a decade, because, people are wanting to hear about it on TikTok, but I think I'm able to do that as well, right? It's the Nadia Bolz-Weber preach from scars, not open wounds. I don't know if you're familiar with that saying. I think I'm at a place now where I am able to talk about my trajectory because I can do so more neutrally and less defensively and less emotionally.
That's helpful. Sure.
Although I still get a lot of people asking me why I hate evangelicals so much.
Oh,
I get that a lot too. I get accused of hating evangelicals. I'm like, I do not hate anyone. I am just trying to honestly share some negative experiences that I had, that many other people have had too.
Absolutely.
Just being real.
You mentioned the male colleagues and content creators stepping in, at least in that one incident, as allies there. I wonder if you have thoughts on other ways that folks can support clergy content creators, folks like you and lots of other folks doing really good work to broad audiences.
Oh, I mean, I think just the engagement is fantastic, right? And I think the more people, I think the more we can be seen as people, right? And being given the space to be people is incredibly helpful, right? Engaging with us as people and letting me talk about Star Wars and not just hell. I think it's a great way, right? Giving us the space to exist in the fullness of our humanity on the app instead of as just representations of a faith. And it's one of the things that I think is really, it's a challenge of social media, but I think it's one of the potential benefits is that on an app like TikTok, you can be seen much more authentically. I mean, authenticity, we talk about manufactured authenticity online and it's a whole thing, but there is the potential to be seen and more of your complexity.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Rachel. We are just about out of time. So I wonder if you have some last thoughts or maybe some advice for folks who are ready to maybe jump in and experiment themselves.
I mean, I think this was very helpful for me, right? Is to not feel like, to allow yourself to be yourself online and whatever that means, right? One of my I said I had this student who made my TikTok and then it took me a solid year to actually post anything on it. And I think it's because I kept what I was getting on my For You page and what I was seeing from the clergy that was just a type of content that I'm never going to be cool and I'm never going to be trendy. And I was just very intimidated by it. And then realizing that I could just talk and I could just answer. And there was a side of myself that I could see doing on this app helped me get over that hurdle. So I think we have this idea about engaging in digital spaces or online ministry, that there is this there's this ideal that has to be achieved, or there's one particularly polished product that it has to look like. And I think to just give yourself permission to do what is authentic and real to you and to be willing to use your gifts in the way that makes sense online and whatever platform that means, I think is the best advice I could give, because that worked for me.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for this conversation, Rachel.
Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you for everybody who's listening as well. Rachel, where do you want to be found online?
I guess at NerdyPriest on TikTok, and then at Rev Rachel K on Twitter. That's where I am, so.
Excellent.
There you go.
And we want to invite everyone listening to join us in our private Facebook group, How We Do Digital Ministry. It's a good place to workshop ideas with colleagues and to just keep this experiment going. So thank you very much. And until next week, peace and blessings to you all.